Let us discuss the next question. This is from the year 2022. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. The Constitution of India classifies the ministers into 4 ranks. The Cabinet Ministers, Minister of States with independent charge, Minister of State and Deputy Minister. Statement 2. The total number of ministers in the Union government, including the Prime Minister, shall not exceed 15% of the total number of members in the Lok Sabha. Which of the following statements are correct? Statement 1 is saying that the Constitution of India classifies ministers into 4 different ranks. Nowhere in the Constitution there is a classification of ministers into 4 different ranks. So this statement is incorrect. It is made more out of convention rather than following the provisions of the Constitution. Statement 2. The total number of ministers in the Union government, including the Prime Minister, it shall not exceed the 15% of the total members of member in the Lok Sabha. This is correct. As per the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act, the limitation was put and the total number of ministers including the Prime Minister was limited to not exceeding the 15% of total strength of the Lok Sabha. So this statement is correct. Which of the following statement is correct? First statement is incorrect. Only 2 is correct. So answer will be B. Now let's look at the in-depth explanation. Like I said, there is no classification in the Constitution when it comes to the Council of Ministers. If you look at Article 74 in the Constitution, it says that there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President. So there is a mention of Council of Ministers, but nowhere in the Constitution there is a clear demarcation of different types of ranks for the Council of Ministers. We do classify ministers into different ranks: the Cabinet Minister, the Minister of State, the Deputy Minister, and on this classification it is based more out of a practice, more out of convention, and not by following the provisions of the Constitution. If we look at the rules of procedure of the House, a minister is defined as a person who is a member of the Council of Ministers, and a Minister of State, a Deputy Minister, or Parliamentary Secretary. The Council of Ministers consists of the Cabinet Ministers, Deputy Ministers, and Minister of States. In the Constitution, the word Cabinet appears in the Article 352, but like I already mentioned, the division of the ministers into different ranks, that is based more on the convention but not based on the provisions of the Constitution. So statement number 1 is incorrect. Coming to statement number 2, it was through the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003. The Article 75 was amended and a restriction was put on the number of people who can become ministers. The restriction is now that the number of people who can become ministers, it shall not exceed 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha. Now, why was this restriction put? If the restriction is not put, unnecessarily every member of parliament, they can be given some minister's rank, and it will be a burden on the public exchequer, the burden on the government financially, and also providing security. And it also doesn't make sense to have so many people who has ministers, because people can misuse this aspect and they can, as a political patronage to whoever they are supporting it, they can simply make them as ministers. So in order to avoid that, in order to have a vibrant democracy, we put a limit on the number of people who can be given the ministerial post. Also, the same 91st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003, it also made changes to the Constitution, and the other provision was also added wherein the person who is disqualified on the grounds of defection, so he also shall not be given the post of the minister. He will be disqualified to be appointed as a minister. Even this aspect was added through the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act. Coming back to the question, the answer is B, 2 only.